Hi, my name is Nora Gelprin. I'm the Director of Sexuality Education and Training at Advocates for Youth. Thanks for joining me as we review Building Rapport with Students when Teaching Sex Education. So let's start by reviewing what is rapport. We know it's really critical, but let's break it down piece by piece. So, rapport is really defined as those meaningful connections that we make with our learners, our students, to help them get the most out of the educational experience. Really talking about that relationship, that connection we have with them, and that allowing them to be more productive as students and as learners. And they've actually found that rapport is the single most important facet of a teacher who is successful and effective. So it's really important for us to consider when teaching sex education. It really speaks to accepting students for who they are, celebrating their uniqueness, truly listening to them, and all of this will allow us to get the best out of our students when they show up in our classrooms each and every day. So there are 5 tips for how to build rapport, particularly for teachers who are newer to teaching sex education. Many of these will be familiar, but we'll go through them one at a time just to make sure you understand what they could look like when teaching sex education. So one of the most basic things is to really make sure to greet students, to make sure that you see them, you affirm them, you check in with them. Here are some easy things that you can do as classes are getting started, or perhaps you're in the hallway between classes. Maybe you're a coach on a club or a team. Maybe you go to different school events, and so that they can see you show up in different ways. You can see them in different environments and different strengths come forward that you may not see in a more formal classroom environment. It's also really important to notice and respect students' personal space, to make sure that you never tolerate any kind of bullying in your classroom or even in the hallways, cafeterias, areas where maybe it's not a formal school or classroom environment, and really make sure that you find a redeeming quality or trait in all of our students, even those that may be more challenging. So here are some examples of ways that we can build rapport with our students. Something as simple as standing at the door as they're arriving, making sure to greet them and affirm them and say, "It's so nice to see you again." Having something as simple as your learning objectives up about a lesson around healthy relationships, or maybe you've established ground rules with your students so that your expectations, protocols, and procedures are clearly in place. You keep those posted and perhaps read them or have a student read them before your lessons on various topics related to sex education. It can also help to have a do now or starter activity to really make sure that students can jump in and engage with the material. Something as simple as what makes a relationship healthy can be a great way to kick off an activity that you might be doing in sex education. As many of us know, it's really effective to praise and reinforce behavior through praise as opposed to more disciplinary techniques, which many of us can revert to sometimes out of old bad habits. So think about to really praise the positive. Also, to recognize that students come into our classrooms and our schools from a variety of communities, many of which are dealing with issues far bigger than what we're addressing in a classroom. So, that might be issues related to poverty, to racism, to classism, to ableism, to not having a place to stay, to not having enough to eat. So, we need to really recognize that this can vastly impact what the students are dealing with and how they'll show up in our classes. And one way to do that is to really make sure that we show them that we care about them, that we're concerned about them. This quote from Teddy Roosevelt really says it so well, to really make sure that they know that we care about them as people in addition to being their educators and their teachers. To really also make sure we take a positive approach to working with them, we show them respect, we show that we value their uniqueness, even though sometimes they may be challenging for us as educators. It's important for us to be mindful of that. So, in summary, to really think about ways that we can build rapport, to use humor when it's appropriate to lighten the atmosphere, but to recognize that we should never go into using sarcasm because that can be perceived as bullying and shaming, even if that's not our intent. To make sure students know that we are human as well, that we make mistakes, and to just admit when we do and to move on. It's great modeling for our students. And lastly, to be genuine and sincere, to make sure that we listen and show empathy for our students. Thanks so much for your time today. I hope some of this review has been helpful for you.